Okay, that's better. Sorry for that mess up. Yeah, what happened? I was trying to set like scheduled live stream, and Streamlabs has a facility where you can do that, and it puts a calendar on for you. Yeah, it puts a schedule up, and you can put a day and a time, tell it what the stream's going to be, and so on. But I couldn't work out how to get out of that. It just wouldn't let me get out of it. I think this is the end of the runway here. I'm going to need all the runway I can get. Yep, that's the end of the runway. Right, so this is a bit tricky. This is going to be a bit like the takeoff yesterday. I'll just give it a couple of minutes for the couple of viewers who disappeared off when I stopped the stream to find me again. Yeah, so this is quite a tight runway for space. I'm tempted to actually reverse back up the runway and get to that, get right to the very end. This is definitely cheating, but I need the runway. As I say, I know this is a bit tight for length. It says I can do it, but do I believe it enough to test it? That's the question, isn't it? So I've still got my pedals linked with the nose wheel. I need to try and sort that out, because the nose wheel steering is currently done by a little tiller control, which gives great control, very fine control. Okay, you're back with me. Sorry about that. I had to reset Streamlabs. There's, as I was saying, there was a function on Streamlabs to set a pre-timed stream so that you could set it so that it would come on at a certain date and certain time. So, ideally, of course, saying I'll be on in 10 minutes or something. However, I couldn't find out how to get out of that part of Streamlabs. So we've got the altitude set, we've got that and that set, the two barometer set. We're going to have to go to flaps 1. We want max auto braking, and we want the spoilers set to armed. This is all to get you to a stop if you need to. So our takeoff configuration is normal. That's good. Now this looks very weird. It looks like I'm taking off in the wrong direction. I should be departing on 29. I'm heading the wrong way. I'm going to have to roll down the airport, roll down the runway, and turn around. I guess at this little provincial airport there's only one entrance to the runway. and start moving. Ah, got my linear brakes on, my analog brakes on. So we'll just taxi on down to the bottom of the runway. So if you're watching this channel or later or now, it'd really help me a lot if you would click on like. The reason for that is because I spent a couple of years not doing anything on YouTube. Some of my privileges have been withdrawn, and I have to amass a certain amount of goodness before I can go back online again, before I can do some of the things I want to do. I'm still allowed to live stream, which is nice. That's because of the number of subscribers I've got, which I'm really happy to say has remained fairly constant. My subscribers seem to be quite a dedicated bunch of people, ever hopeful that I'll get the next piece of junk on Josh or whatever her name was, Danielle. More on that later. I did some digging. There is some stuff. So got to do a turnaround on the runway. This runway is clearly not designed for aircraft this big. There's no question of that at all. I think I took off from here once before and just squeaked over the trees at the end of the runway. You could almost hear the trees going So, as I say, this is like the final part of yesterday's flight. I always try and keep the flights finished, even if I crash for whatever reason. The flight yesterday was terminated at the wrong time because I didn't realize there was a discontinuity between the flight sim and the Fenix aircraft. If you use the Fenix aircraft, there are certain things you can't use on the Microsoft Flight Simulator, and one of those appears to be go-to. So at the top menu bar, I'll just pop on the parking brake and I'll show you. There's that button there, travel to, and if you have a look at it, it shows you your flight plan from taking off all the way up to cruise and then all the way down to landing. And unfortunately yesterday I set start of descent, and the instant I did that, there was a mountain in front of me. Big one that didn't care. No sympathy from it whatsoever. They just splattered into it, and that was the end of the flight. I think there was 2 or 3 people on the online at the time who were watching. Okay, so double check. We've got our takeoff configuration is normal again. We'll just double check that. Yes, nominal. We've got our barometer set. We've got our initial cruise height set. We've got that set to maximum. All the 3 barometers agree with each other, 29.2, 29.2, 29.2. So, here we go. Half power. Right, Right, we've got to get up to 140 knots. 100. We're going to be pushing it. I can see the end of the runway already, which is never a good sign. 140, that's VR, that's good. That'll explain why the yeah, that will explain why V1 was so small. Brilliant. That means I'm going to have to file a new flight plan while I'm in flight. It takes a little while to get that to come up. Yeah, did the bad thing there. Stop looking out the window. We're doing all right though. Let's try and get this squawk set. Let's get around this bend first. The autopilot's a bit touchy these days. Sometimes it just doesn't want to play games with you. Even though you think you're in a perfect alignment to get the autopilot on, it just refuses. Oh, let's get the gear up. We're forgetting all sorts of stuff here. So we'll be hand flying for a little while. Seatbelt signs are on. We can clear that. Still got to set the squawk. So hand flying's not too bad. Mostly, if you have a route set, it's a matter of keeping these two lines, that line and that line, in the square box. Doesn't help if they keep disappearing. Just trying to think what I've done that's stopping the stopping the autopilot. Come on, never mind, it's not the end of the world. We had a ding just now. That's because we're within 300 feet of our cruise, our set height. Oh, we got autopilot at last. Now, what was that? 3313. Now we can go to retry with last flight plan. Okay.
NOS 5 November Oscar Sierra 5, cleared to Juneau Airport as filed. Squawk 3313. NOS 5 November Oscar Sierra 5 feedback correct. Radar contact 10,000 feet. QNH 29er.902, turn right, heading 250 climb and maintain flight level 220.
Why would we want to climb,
Turn right,
change to
heading
heading
250 climb
250?
and maintain flight level 220 NOS 5 November Oscar
However, who
Sierra
are
5.
we to ask? And climb and maintain 22,000. I have no idea why it's asked me to make this turn to 250.
Anchorage Center NOS 5 November Oscar Sierra 5, requesting vector to next waypoint. NOS 5 November Oscar Sierra 5, continue to fix turning and following heading 095 per 0 course.
Let's
Continue to fix turning and following heading 095, resume on navigation NOS 5 November Oscar Sierra 5.
that was one of those ridiculously fake instructions. It's like go and stand in the corner over there for 5 minutes and then come back. I mean, that turn was pointless, but when ATC tell you to turn, they've usually got a reason, and quite frequently the reason is other aircraft. Right, mind your ears, we're going outside. Got my lovely airplane. So we should be following the coast, more or less. Silence. Yeah, once we get anywhere near our original route, which is over here, we should be able to just follow the coast down. So if I switch that to manage, that's okay. It'll sort itself out. Oh, look, mountains in the distance. They look nice. Snow-covered mountains. I don't know anything about the mountains of Alaska. I know there are some, so I crashed into one yesterday. I was reading about Juneau, our destination today, and I found that, quite strangely for me, the Juneau, the capital of Alaska, is unreachable by by road. Now, I don't know if that's just at certain times of the year, or if it's always unreachable by road. It sounds very strange to have a country's capital being waterlocked, basically, I suppose. So let's tweak our course a little bit to line up with our actual line. I remember from yesterday's discussions there, we're going to get to 22,000 feet by the time we reach this blue arrow. That's our projected altitude. We can cross this path anywhere. In fact, if I turn that down a bit, we'll cross it sooner. So we'll be back on track once it's finished turning in 71, in about... Okay, up to 230. Uh, 230 is actually our cruise height. That's what I set up in the McDo. So if we put the radar on, we might see some of those mountains in the distance. It tends to show up water as blue. It's like random reflections off the front edges of each wave. So we're going along quite well. We should be able to put it into managed direction very soon. So now we're at the cruise height. Okay, standby one, that's my phone. Okay, so we're back on track. We're a little bit away from our intended path. Not far. We set this down to shortest distance. We're what, 4 miles off route. So we want to try and get our intercept onto the route fairly soon. I wasn't paying attention to it and it slipped past me, so we want to turn right. So what I could do to speed it up is go direct to Fenix. Direct to Fenix. Insert. So that should take away that part of the route now. It's gone. So we're now flying as we should be. Here's our circle with ETP. I started discussing this yesterday. This is called the equal time point. It's when you're halfway in flight time between your takeoff point and your destination. It's useful if you have an emergency where you have to suddenly change course or change airport, or perhaps just decide whether, if you're crossing the ocean for example, whether turning back is more effective than going straight forward. Right, we'll be starting to descend soon. Let's see what oh my gosh, look at those mountains.
133.2 knots, 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. Anchorage Center, knots 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5, flight level 230.
So I'm thinking that as we come into Juneau, it's going to be night time. The sun's already on its way down. But I don't think it's going to be too far before we need to start reducing our altitude and trying to control the speed a bit as well. Remember, speed and altitude, speed and weight, sorry, speed and mass gives you momentum, which we have to get rid of somehow when we land, so we want as low a momentum as possible within the guidelines of the airspeed and control speed limits of the plane, etc. So that arrow tells us when we're going to start descending, that white arrow to the sticking out to the right there, inconveniently placed in a gap between lines, and the same again right there. That's our descent point. That's when we should start be preparing to descend. We're in this waypoint here, which is dittoed the 230, and when we get here we're going to be dropping down to 10,000 and then 4,600, 4,100, 2,700 at Mildry, 2,000 feet, 300 feet at, and then into. Something doesn't look right with this, but we'll get there. So what we're hoping for soon is a descend command from ATC. Let's have a quick look outside again. It's so nice out there. We can just have a quick look at the map, which is by no means synchronized to our actual flight path. Once again, another issue between Fenix and Flight Sim. But as you can see, we are more or less halfway. We'll be going to Gumley and then down to there and then into Juneau. So that's the hills we just crossed. You see there's some high stuff around here. These are ISO lines which tell you different height levels. So that one there is a peak relative to that, relative to that, relative to the ground. It's not much use, that map, but it gives you a general idea. Try and leave the comms section open a bit because you can easily miss there we go, descent to 15,000. Oops, wrong way. I have a set of rotary encoders which I've wired into the flight sim through the same method I use for my throttle quadrant, but they don't work with Fenix. They work fine on the fly-by-wire, but not on the Fenix, unfortunately. And when I contacted Fenix to ask them, they sort of said, well, this is sort of proprietary information. We can't really tell you how to do it, but have a look here. And indeed, there was a lot of information about how to find these bits of code in the stream that comes to and from the simulator, but I wasn't very keen on working it out, to be honest. It was a bit more than I could do at the time. I'll have another go at it. So instead of having to put the mouse on, say, the speed button and rotating it and pushing it or pulling it, I've got a control here. I don't know if you can hear it on my throttle quadrant, that actually would control that in the fly-by-wire plane, but doesn't control it on the Fenix one, which is a pity. Now I think we're pretty much going to be having to do a manual landing into Juneau. The reason I think that is because I don't think there's an ILS runway. So there's a yeah, there isn't an ILS runway, which means that I'm going to be flying in by hand, which is going to be a nice change. If you watch my videos, you know I generally let the plane do the work. Now let's see what else we've got running here and what we can do, just in case there's anything we need to fiddle about with before we get there. So let's have a look at the control unit. We're at 15,000 set. Speed I've dropped down to 220. Electrical system is fine. Engines are running nicely, plenty of oil, fuel, everything's all good there. Fuel tons, literally 3.3 tons. So we started off with 5.2, now we're at 3.3, so we've used just under 2 tons, 1.9 tons of fuel or so. And we're not quite there yet. This is expecting us to be able to last 4 hours and 34 minutes, I believe. But if you look at 15 kilograms per minute, you could work out, dividing that, how many minutes of fuel you've got left. So let's say that was 3 tons and 15. So 3 into 15 into 3,000 is 200. Yeah, 220 minutes that would be. Oh, that's somebody else at the door. Stand by one. And we're back. So, we've got to do some descending quickly now. This is what happens when you don't pay attention.
Descend and maintain 4,100 feet, knots 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5.
So we're going to have to really hammer this down because I got caught. Somebody knocked on the door and I had to answer it. Sorry.
Descend and maintain 4,700 feet, knots 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. Descend and maintain 5,600 feet, knots 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5.
We should make their mind up, catching up with me.
Maintain 4,800 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5 descend and maintain 4,100 feet. Descend and maintain 4,100 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5.
Okay, because I dumped. Because I went out for a few seconds there, I've got a bit closer to the airport. Oh no, we should be down. We should be down in time. There's a setting on this.
Descend and maintain 5,400 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5.
It's like it's trying to make me skim over the mountaintops or something.
Descend and maintain 4,700 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5 descend and maintain 3,800 feet.
Is it worth it?
Descend and maintain 3,800 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5 descend and maintain 3,400 feet. Descend and maintain 3,400 feet, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5.
I wonder how long I've been saving all those up. Looks like they've been saving them up for ages. So we've got to go off standard barometers now.
NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5, contact Anchorage Center on 133.9. Good day. Going to 133.9, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5. Anchorage Center, NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5, is at 7,900 feet, descending 3,400 feet. NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5, Anchorage Center, QNH 29.9 to continue as planned.
2992. That's the right setting.
West of Juneau. Contact Juneau Tower on 118.7 when inbound on the approach.
Right, so we've got some serious slowing down and height dumping to do. I'm almost tempted to put a delay in.
November Oscar, Sierra 5, 17 miles west inbound, Arnav Victor runway 8 approach. NOS 5 November Oscar, Sierra 5, Juneau Tower. QNH 29.9 entry. Clear Arnav Victor runway 8 approach.
Yeah. We'll be down to the height I've selected by then. That gives me all the rest of the run in to let's get rid of that. That gives me the rest of the run in to get the speed under control and get down to exactly the right height and so on. I think this flashing here is telling me that I'm left of the track in and higher than the track in, almost like an ILS. I've not done one of these RNAV approaches before. That's why I said we'd probably do it in probably do it manually. Is that the runway up ahead there? No, that's the runway there. So we've got some turning to do just yet. So that's us reach speed, I believe. Height, I mean. So let's get the speed down. Put some flaps on. Get the gear down. What's that say? Oh, I've still got the speed brake out. Yeah, I can bring that in now. Right, so there's the runway. I need to be left. So I'm going to take over control. Drop out the autopilot. I hope you'll realise this is going to end in a horrible crash. Okay, we're far too high. So what I'm going to do is just do a go around. Oh, I shouldn't have done a go around that way. That's looks like stuff in the way there. What I'm doing is trying to dump some height, dump some speed, and at the same time sort of line up with the runway a bit. What I might do is go around and do I'm going to declare a missed approach.
Juneau Tower, NOS 5, November Oscar, Sierra 5 is going missed. NOS 5, November Oscar, Sierra 5, contact Anchorage Center on 133.9er. Good day. Going to 133.9er, NOS 5, November Oscar, Sierra 5.
Great. Pull up. Pull up. Too low. Terrain.
Ah. I hit something. I think it was a building. Oh well, never mind. I'll restart it and do that flight again later, but when it's daytime in Anchorage. I'll set the time different. My plan was to go to the south and come in north rather, and come in on the other runway. Come back the way, opposite way, effectively. Well, that was a disaster. I knew it was going to crash. I just haven't quite got the hang of terrain. That was a C-fit, a controlled flight into terrain. Sorry, viewer, you just missed it. Yeah, I was a bit low as I was going over Anchorage, and I must have hit something that stopped me dead. So the only question now remains is, where do we bury the survivors? So anyway, sorry about that. I'll end the stream here. I'll be back a bit later on and we'll do that flight again, but with daylight all the way, and I might even find a closer airport to make it shorter. I just want to get into Juneau. So with that, this is Nightmare on Scam Street, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. And please, if you have watched this video, I'd really appreciate a click on the like button. I got a lot of work to do to get my privileges back after not being on for such a long time. So this is Nightmare on Scam Street.